Well, hello there. I'm not going to put the camera on, but I do think I feel good enough to read, or I'm an English teacher, well enough to read. So, why don't we read and discuss the human brain a little bit? It's pretty short, so hopefully I can do it without coughing too much here. I'm going to hide this thing here. All right, so this is a very difficult article. But hopefully, with what you've studied, those words, at least you've seen them for the unit this week. So hopefully, this will make a little bit more sense just because you've seen those words before. All right, the famous scientist James Watson, no relation, summarized it this way: the brain boggles the mind. The human brain is truly impressive. It weighs only about 3 pounds, but controls everything a person does, ever has done, and ever will do, physically, intellectually, and emotionally. So you probably know these: physically, the things you do with your body; intellectually, the things you do with your mind; and emotion. No computer even comes close to having the brain's abilities. The brain controls a person's actions, reactions, and survival functions such as breathing. It also has the ability to think, remember, process information, and learn new things. Paragraph 2. The brain is one part of the central nervous system, the system that controls all of the body's activities. So if you don't know what the central nervous system is, you do now. It's the system that controls all of the body's activities. The central nervous system is made up of these two things here: the brain and the spinal cord. Central nervous system. The brain is protected by the skull, and the spinal cord runs through vertebrae of the back, the bones that make up the spine. The spinal cord transmit messages between the brain and other parts of the body through nerve cells called neurons. So, what are neurons? Those are nerve cells. If you just read back those are nerve cells that transmit messages between the brain and the spinal cord. Neurons. If a person decides to pick up a book from the shelf, hopefully you are reading, right? Picking up books from the shelves. It's a voluntary action. The brain sends the message to the arm and hand through the spinal cord. So that's voluntary. It's like you want to do it. Pick something up. You decide to do it. And if a person touches a hot surface and burns his or her hand, an involuntary action, the nerve cells in the hand send a pain message to the brain through the spinal cord. So, I mean, you can't even think to not, well, unless you're just dumb, you get together with your friends, you're like, hey, let me touch this hot surface. You could trick your brain into being dumb, which I'm sure we've all done it, teenagers. But another involuntary action would be breathing. I mean, you can tell your brain to stop breathing, but then if you decide to hold your breath for so long that you could die, your brain takes over. They realize, oh, we got an idiot on our hands. I'm going to make him or her pass out, and then we'll start breathing again. Constant stream of messages travels through the neurons in the spinal cord at speeds of more than 150 miles per hour. The brain never stops working, even when a person is asleep. As well as transmitting messages through the spinal cord, neurons transmit messages from one part of the brain to the other. So there's another job. Not only do neurons transmit messages to the spinal cord from the brain, they go from one part of the brain to the other. There are approximately 85 billion of these cells in the brain alone. Neurons send messages through tiny branch-like structures that connect to other neurons in different places, as well as other parts of the body. Points where neurons meet and transmit information to each other are called synapses. So that's a really long definition right there for synapse. You can look back. Those are tiny branch-like structures that connect neurons to other parts of the brain, as well as other parts of the body. Each neuron may be connected to as many as 10,000 other neurons, resulting in more than 100 trillion synapses in a single brain. Although a person cannot increase the amount of neurons in his or her brain, learning new things increases the number of synapse connections between them. Learning and education actually change the structure of the brain. So go to school. Come on. That structure changes every time a person learns, every time a person has a new thought or memory. The more a person learns, the more there is to think about, and the more there is to think about, the more there is to remember. As a result, the connections between neurons get stronger. The brain is able to function more effectively. It processes, thinks, analyzes, and stores information more quickly and productively than it did before these connections were made. Neurons are just cells, and everything a person knows is the result of the connection between them. Scientists have gained a wealth of knowledge about the brain. There is a lot they do not yet understand. The neurologist, I am not going to say this correctly, but Santiago Ramon Cayal, sorry, Santiago, for example, compares the brain to the world of unexplored continents with great stretches of unknown territory. Even so, new discoveries continually increase our knowledge of how the brain functions and how people learn. All right, I hope this was helpful. I'm going to end it there.